Hey there, folks. Welcome to another edition of Time About the Movies. We're in the final stretch. We're in the final third of 1989 as we begin the month of October, October 6th. We've got 4 movies to look at today, and I remembered to write them all down because on Box Office Mojo, as I showed you yesterday, they weren't highlighted on there for that particular weekend. So I did remember to write them down. So let's go ahead and start with the first movie. And the first movie here is Tom Selleck starring in the action thriller An Innocent Man. So yeah, pretty generic, you could probably see. I mean, it's basically pretty much the same plot as Lockup we had just a couple weeks ago. But it's that. It's your typical prison drama storyline. I mean, for a movie that has a director on the caliber of Peter Yates, who was a big director at the time, he had directed so many good films such as The Breaking Away, Kroll, The Dresser, The Year of the Comet would be his next film. He also did The Bullet with Steve McQueen. You get a director like that. You have Tom Selleck leading a cast that also includes an Oscar winner in F. Murray Abraham, Layla Robbins from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, David Raish from Sledgehammer, the TV series. And it's just a pretty generic plot. It's a pretty generic plot. It's a pretty generic story. I mean, honestly, you can kind of predict everything that's going to happen in this movie, and unfortunately, it doesn't really amount to a whole lot here. Tom Selleck, at least in this one, he's trying his best. He's trying to make this work, but it's just such a generic script. It doesn't really do a whole lot to make it stand out on its own. It's not even all that interesting or entertaining in the most part here. You see these great actors here trying their best, they're working hard to make this work, but it just doesn't work. It just doesn't really work all that well, at least to me, at least. Yeah, An Innocent Man, mostly a forgettable movie. But there have been much better movies like this. There have been a whole lot better movies like this. I'd pass on this one if I were you. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie. And at least An Innocent Man was more memorable than the next movie that we're going to look at, and that is Old Gringo. Yep, this is another one of those movies that was part of the David Putnam era at Columbia Pictures. And error can also be said in this, because a lot of David Putnam's movies were not very good. But like I said before, he did have the 1 or 2 hits, but this was not one of those hits. I mean, for a movie that has a cast of this caliber, Jane Fonda, Gregory Peck, Jimmy Smits, I mean, it's a forgettable movie, man. It's trying to be this generation's Gone with the Wind, but it really is not. It's like this big romantic drama that they're trying to set up here in the caught up. It takes place during the background of the Mexican Revolution, and yeah, it was kind of boring. It was kind of a dull movie. I mean, it has, like I said, like with An Innocent Man, it has a very generic script. It doesn't really do anything to make it stand out over other movies of this caliber that have been done much better. Gone with the Wind, for example, and Out of Africa from this decade. It's hard to make a movie like this work in a modern era like right now, but in this, or at least in this time period of 1989. But yeah, it was mostly forgotten. The whole people, it came and went. I got nothing else to say on that one. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is Thelonious Monk, Straight No Chaser. I had to clip it off at the end there because the Warner Archive video template page came up, and unfortunately, even with YouTube Premium, you can't really get rid of that. Unfortunately, so I had to cut it off there. I had to cut it off mid-sentence, but you get kind of the idea of what this is. This is a documentary about Thelonious Monk, who was a famous jazz pianist and composer, and you may know him from his work such as the aforementioned Straight No Chaser, but he also did Blue Monk, Ruby My Dear, In Walked Bud, Well You Needn't, and of course one of his more memorable songs, Around Midnight. What's notable about this is that Clint Eastwood's production company was behind this movie, and Eastwood actually served as an executive producer on this, which came out around the same time he did the movie about Bird. I can't remember who it was about now. Give me 1 second here. Charlie Parker, that's what I'm thinking of. It had Forrest Whitaker in it. But yeah, Thelonious Monk, Straight No Chaser. It's a documentary. It's your typical standard documentary. You've got the talking heads, the interviews with friends and family. You get to see performances of Monk and his band, and it's an overall enjoyable movie. I'm not really the biggest jazz person. I know a couple of jazz personalities myself, But for the most part here, it's a interesting documentary. You get to learn more about this guy that maybe most people don't really know about. Maybe people didn't want to know about, but watching it for this particular video I'm doing, I'm glad I saw it. I'm glad I saw it, and it was a very good documentary. It's not one of the best documentaries I've seen, but it is interesting to know about this guy. It's one of those documentaries where you're glad to see it. You actually get something out of it. You actually get something that you feel very interested about. You feel like you're invested in something. That's just my feeling on it, and yeah, I'd say if you're into jazz and you don't know much about Thelonious Monk, which I don't know why you wouldn't, but if you don't know about it, this is one I definitely say you should definitely check out. So, anyway, let's get on to the last movie that we have here, and that is Gus Van Sant's Drugstore Cowboy. This is actually Gus Van Sant's second film as a director. The first one he did was Malanoche, but this is the one that put him on the map. This is the one that put him into the open and made him become one of the most well-known independent directors of the time. And you can kind of see why with this trailer here. I mean, the movie itself is fantastic. This is I would say, very underrated movie. I don't think a lot of people really know much about this movie, but it's a really good movie. You've got a great cast here: Matt Dillon, Kelly Lynch, Heather Graham, James Remare, James LeGros. They're all in this movie. Yeah, even though this is based off of a book too, the book actually was released after the movie came out. It was one of those rare movies where the source novel was actually unpublished and later came out as a book in 1990 because the writer of that book, James Fogle, actually was released in prison. Was released from prison in 1990, and just like the characters in the book, he was a longtime drug user and a drug dealer. And they did a really good job with this movie. The performances are very good. These were the young actors at the peak, is starting to grow into their own. It's not afraid to be taken. It's not afraid to not go the safe route here. There are a lot of deep, darker elements here. A lot of violent, transistent elements here, and excuse me. But the movie actually does a pretty good job here. Even though these people are doing terrible things to each other and to the other people, they show that they're not bad people. They're just people that need a lot of help. Like they have mental health issues to deal with. I mean, a lot of people I think can relate to that, especially nowadays. But this movie actually does a pretty good job of not portraying these characters as just the straight up villains. They're normal people. They're people that they're good people, but they do bad things. They're not villains. They're not really these monsters. They're just people that need a lot of help. And I think the movie does a very good job with it. And they did a great job casting these people. Matt Dillon in particular gives a great performance in this movie, and I think this is one of the movies that made Matt Dillon branch out as a big star, even though his brother, Kevin Dillon, had already had success prior to this with stuff like The Blob, and then a couple weeks later after this movie came out, he would star in Immediate Family, which we'll get to in a couple of weeks. But, I mean, not much more to say about this one. It's a very good movie. Gus Van Sant, this was the movie that launched him into his career. He would become more of a prominent name in the 90s. Great director, and he makes a great movie here with a great cast. It's not afraid to break the boundaries, and you get a good movie out of it. So I would say definitely check out Drugstore Cowboy if you haven't already. And with that said, that's going to wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. On Sunday, we'll take a look at the movies released on Friday, the 13th of October of 1989. Some good movies came out during this time. We had Look Who's Talking. We'll definitely delve into that. Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. Maybe not as memorable, but you never know. The Fabulous Baker Boys, Crimes and Misdemeanors, Woody Allen's movie, and Breaking In. So 5 movies to look at when we come back here on Sunday to do October 13th. But, yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this week. And it's hard to believe we're already almost done with 1989. We only got 3 months to go. And then by my projections, by May, we jump into 1990. So that's going to be... It's going to be interesting to see how we do that over the next 15 days, because I'm recording this on the 15th. But tomorrow, movie stop, and then later on this weekend, I'll have the first episode of the monthly series Multiplicity. So definitely be on the lookout for both of those. I'll see you guys tomorrow for movie stop. I'll see you guys on Sunday for the next Time About the Movies. If you like these videos and want to see more about Time About the Movies episodes, check out the playlist on the next page. Check out the previous episode on top. And I will see you guys tomorrow for another video. So thank you for watching, and until then, take care.